How you breed PALs has completely changed in PALWORLD 1.0, like getting 4 times the eggs at one given time, special mutations that drop with unique passives, and entire teams designed to not just boost egg collecting, but even to alter them altogether. So you know the drill, we're going to go over a fully updated guide on how to breed the perfect PALs in 2026. As always, a sub to the channel would really help me out, and let's dive right in. Now, first of all, let's start with some of the absolutely must-have broken PALs you need in your team whenever you're doing any breeding, and one of the most important is definitely going to be Grintail. When you fully condense this guy, he's going to have a 75% chance for you to receive an extra egg when you pick up any eggs from the ground. So just to show you how busted this is, if I were to collect one of these eggs that just finished producing, instead of getting just one, I am getting 2. However, it can get even crazier a little bit later in the game once we introduce the new mushroom cake, because we can practically get up to 4 eggs from just 1 egg production. He's also very easy to grab from early on. The boss is only level 17, very close to the starting zone, so absolutely grab him and max condense him ASAP. Then we're going to have the duo between Bronchory and Bronchory Aqua at the same time, because both of them provide a similar partner skill that each increase the chance for picked eggs to become alpha eggs. And the two skills do stack with one another, so running one Bronchory and one Aqua version fully condensed do bring that chance to 100%. This is especially useful if you plan on farming alpha PAL bosses for legendary blueprints. You can easily deconstruct them at the PAL disassembly line and basically get that and tons of resources on top. Or if you want extra, I guess, PALs that are alpha in your team, nothing else changes, the stats will still be exactly the same as non-alphas. Finally, we're gonna have Whispaw added with 1.0. This is amazing for the back capturing bonus that it gives. So when fully condensed, it almost gives you the equivalent of like having a sphere 1 level higher than your current one. So like you can see in the case of this spell right here, by default my capture chance is 49%, but if I were to have that in my party, it jumps 18% higher. Now this is going to apply multiplicatively, mind you, so the higher your base capture rate is, the higher the back bonus will also be, but it's still going to be extremely useful. Now, from this point on, we're going to combine this with the Yakumo, just like before. If you want to farm this guy early, you can quickly breed an Incineram and the Fuwak, which is going to give you this. Yeah, like you know, some of the breeding formulas have changed, but you can find a level 10 Incineram very early on below the Windswept Island Watchtower right here, which will be spawned by one of the goons. And Fuwak is going to be all over the place in the starting zones. Now, Yakumo is going to be extremely important from this point on because we can use him to transfer his own passives to PALs that we capture. So it's always worth to have a Yakumo with 1 or 2 traits that we can, pretty much transfer to any PAL that we capture. But there are some limitations to this. First of all, Yakumo must be actively summoned for this to trigger. Second of all, when we do catch a PAL, the game first generates the PAL's natural traits, and only then, if it features any empty passive slots, then is when Yakumo's own passives will roll a check to force its own on those empty slots. Possibly most important though is that in terms of the transfer rates, the game actually rolls that for each open slot individually, meaning that the math operates on a compound probabilities. So the general consensus now is that you will want to run a Yakumo with 1 or 2 skill tops so that you have better chances at transferring them, because the chance to actually transfer all 4 is going to be less than 1%, which is not something you want. Which brings us to point number 3, and that's going to be mutations, a brand new mechanic added specifically in 1.0 which can easily fast track you to some of the strongest spells in the game. That is because 1 in every 100 eggs in the new update now has a chance to actually become mutated, which you can see from its very distinct appearance, but it goes beyond that. It's also that the PAL itself will be much stronger than whatever its parents were. It will have higher stats, higher IVs, spawn with unique passives that the parents may have not even had, and on top of all of this, it can even roll, and actually always seems to roll, with a 2-star rating right out of the gate. So just to show you the combination here between a Wixen and a Turtlecle actually also produced one of these spells, and upon opening it up it gave me a War Sect, which yeah, comes with these crazy stats right here. Keep in mind that those two previous spells don't even create a War Sect by default. This is one of the things you're going to notice. Pretty much like everything can spawn out of it, even dark pals from normal parents and so on and so forth, with these crazy stats on top. Now, the chance for mutations to appear seems to be exceedingly low. About 1 in every 100 eggs seems to be capable of doing this. However, we can further increase that chance, about like triple it with one of the cakes in just a little bit. So we're going to dive right in with the new addition there as well. However, before you dive into any pal breeding, I recommend the following tools to make things even easier. At level 34, you're going to want to unlock the ability glasses. This is going to let you see the IV stats, of course, on the characters. So the closer they are to 100, the higher their defensives, attacks, and even speed will be in comparison to a lower level version. On top of that, you will also want to get a Braloha back at your base and max condense it. This by default gives you a 50% increase to the speed of breeding farms. On top of the fact that there is a new passive called the Babysitter that further increases that by another 30% and even incubation speed by the same amount. Very important for every base. In addition to this, don't forget that at level 38 you unlock the PAL surgery table. This is going to let you set implants on your pals to basically replace undesirable passives. Let's say maybe you got a semi-perfect pal, but one of its passives you wanted gone. Well, you can actually replace it with something like muscle head or any implant you have available. There are multiple sources of getting implants. Some are unlocked by default at the surgery table, and there's finally a new set of implants that can be acquired via the new artifact system starting level 74. And once you get the artifact recycler at that stage, you can get artifacts from pretty much everywhere. From expeditions is one of the greatest sources, but also from hunting pals in the world tree. And as you get more of these implants, you can decode them over here, and they have an albeit small chance to also turn into, of course, implants of legendary quality. Yes, this includes the world tree implants, which are some of the strongest in the game as well. And finally, also don't skip on fishing on this side, especially when you find anything purple or green, because yeah, especially green are the best at providing you those tier 4 stats. And as you can see, even in the starting zones, we can already find some of them. We just got this Fuak with a mastery of fasting, or we found another one a little bit later down the line, like a Kurajiro with a ranch master. It's going to all be RNG, but the fishing minigame is strong and worth it. So let's get going with the breeding farm right here. Let's assume that you already have everything started. The breeding farm gets unlocked at level 19, and you will need to complete, of course, the second tower and basically defeat Lily and Lylene. From that point on, you can basically start your farming process. And that finally brings us to the cake game starting level 30. In PALWORLD 1.0, there are 4 new types of cake that were added, with the mushroom, vegetable, extravagant vegetable, and finally the special cake. Don't look at it as a linear progression. You're going to use these in conjunction with one another to properly set up a farm, but I'm going to first break down what every single one of them does. So the first one will be level 30, the mushroom cake. The description mentions that your pals will lay particularly healthy eggs and that the talents of the resulting pals will grow slightly more easily. What that essentially means is that this is the IV cake. So yeah, the offsprings will have on average slightly higher IVs than their parents. So in this case, I was using IVs around 70 to 80, 85, and it didn't take more than one batch of breeding to already start seeing 100 in one of the stats, multiple at the same time actually. So this is what it helps you with. It helps with IVs. The setup over here changes slightly from the regular cake, so you're going to use a shroomer at a ranch so that he produces both mushrooms and the cavern mushrooms at the same time, but everything else remains largely the same. You will still use wheat to transform into flour. You're going to use chickpeas at the ranch for the eggs and also bee guards for the honey. Then at level 47 we have the vegetable cake, aka the double spawn. This causes your pals to lay twice the number of eggs than the usual, so instead of just one appearing at once, 2 will appear at the same time. Which by the way absolutely stacks with Greentail's own passive, so theoretically instead of the typical 1 egg you would get in the previous update, now you can get up to 4 because all of these can be then further doubled by Greentail's passive, which is actually going to help quite a lot. The only difference for this setup is that you're now combining basically the salad farm with the cake farm, so you will now use tomato and lettuce in the components as well. That's why you're going to want to have the previous setup, but with the 2 new additions. Now at level 60 is when it becomes a lot more interesting, and by this time you should also upgrade your kitchen, by the way, if you haven't for the previous one. This is the Extravagant vegetable cake, and this is going to cause mutations to be more likely to occur and talents will grow more easily. So what this means is that now you're going to have a significantly higher chance, albeit still small in the grand scheme of things, for eggs to spawn as fully mutated. As you can see over here, we even had a couple of them appearing within the same batch, which was not too crazy. To be honest, this looks really promising right here. You're essentially going to aim eventually to go for mutated eggs, as that's going to both let you get max IVs or close to max IVs, better talents, and also even pals that you normally don't currently have, because the mutations can be outside of whatever the parents breed towards. So just to show you some of the results I made over here, starting simple with the Cativa and the Land Ball, just for the lucky passive on the Cativa and the ferocious on that Land Ball, I noticed that even on these mutated eggs, at least 2 of these were transferred almost every single time. So you will see that all the offsprings still rolled lucky and ferocious every single time. However, they also rolled 2 additional extra new passives that neither of the parents ever had before. Like for example, we can see heavily armored, King of Waves, and a whole bunch of other rainbow stats like Babysitter also rolled here, which is an amazing one to have on a Braloha, or even King of the Waves and so on. So they can definitely roll outside of what they can possibly do. However, it goes a little bit beyond that because it also massively boosts some of their IVs. So in the case of the Cativa, while its IVs were decent, the Land Ball was pretty bad. However, almost every single one of the offsprings was very close to max IVs. Yeah, pretty much 98, 96, 91, so very close to max. One of them even already had 100, so that is a massive jump. Keep in mind that the offspring generally will average out from both of the parents. These ones greatly exceeded both of them at the same time, at least the majority of them did. And on top of that, they also spawned with 2 stars, which is really crazy. They already rolled with some very strong skills right out of the gate. What this essentially means is that the mutation is in fact going to likely be the last cake that you use in a farming session. It's not going to be the second last, it's going to be the last one that you use for these perfected stats and the possibility for it to spawn a mutation. It's going to be the last in the chain to make the perfect pal out of it. The farm setup is not too complicated either. You only need Woolly Pop at a ranch for the cotton candy. Everything else with the flour stays the same. And then you can get potato, onion, and carrot seeds easily by just farming a lot of Veilats. They come in very early, even at the first sanctuary. Which finally brings us to the last cake, and that's going to be the special version at level 74. This is going to make it more likely for your offsprings to inherit multiple passive skills from their parents. This, in combination with the level 74 ancient breeding farm, is so strong that literally every time you use it, it's 100% guaranteed to give you exactly the stats from its own parents, assuming that you only go with 4. So that's why now, just like before, it's important for you whenever you breed any pals, make sure that both of them combined have exactly 4 of the passives that you really want and not more. Otherwise, you're just introducing a lot of RNG. But if you do go with that route, as you can see, every single one of them was spawning exactly with the desired stats. The only thing we're going to introduce newly here is the caramel cotton candy, which you can find from the Woolly Pop Terra. She's going to be on this island, yeah, pretty much south from the world tree. So again, put them at the ranch, milk and egg, flour stay the same. For Memorest meats, either hunt Memorest, but you can also send any expedition to the world tree and they tend to drop by the dozens. At the very least, it did for me. But now that we know all of this, let's go over a step-by-step breeding line for update 1.0 to maximize everything out of all of the new mechanics. And one of the first things you're going to do whenever you start a new breeding line, let's say for example your pals are a mess, you have disjointed traits, some of them may have like legend, some of them may have muscle head. So what you want to do is start with the vegetable cake. The strategy over here is basically you don't care about the stats or mutations just yet, you just need the raw volume to brute force RNG of merging passive traits together. So this in conjunction with Grintail will double the initial doubling of the eggs. So now you get up to 4 eggs instead of just 1, drastically increasing your volume and hopefully eventually generating at least some half perfect parents for the next batch. Now with this set of new half-perfect parents, you're likely not going to have the best IVs, maybe you're going to have one extra passive in there that is really bad and you don't want it. Well, from this point on, we're going to play the inheritance lock-in. Basically, we're going to try to flash out all of the bad passives and only keep the good ones in. So what we're going to use is actually add the level 74 special cake from this point on for the next batch. This is going to now reduce some of the randomness of everything, and with it we can now force the offsprings to more cleanly inherit multiple traits that are desirable from the parents. Keep in mind that the ones that are better have the higher chance to transfer with the special cake, and hopefully you can get some offsprings with at least 3 if not even 4 fully desirable traits. Which will bring us now to the final parts of the breeding chain, and that's going to be maxing out your existing pals. They are close to perfect but not completely perfect yet. Well, we can push them over the edge with a final extravagant vegetable cake to top it all off. Now, this is going to be full RNG, by the way. The chance is small, but you're going to be hunting for those mutations, which are going to give you the perfect IVs. They will give you the 2 stars. They will also unlock extra rainbow passives. So if you're missing anything like immortality or idiosyncratic, depending on the build you're going with, this is going to unlock them and add them on top of whatever the parents already had, assuming that you didn't have enough to fully populate it with rainbow passives. Also, quick disclaimer for the level 76 Ancient Hatchery, you will only want to use this in the later stages of the breeding farm and not in the early when you're farming for volume. So that is because if you're still in the volume stage hunting for as many eggs as possible, you're going to want to use the regular farm since the bonus to picking eggs only applies when you physically pick them up. In this case, for the Ancient Hatchery, obviously the eggs go directly to the hatchery once they create, so the bonuses from your team pals no longer apply. But the Ancient Hatchery will be used at the end of the chain. Basically, once you're done with the volume and are hunting for rare skills, this is going to increase the inheritance rate of rare skills even more. Between this and the special cake, that chance seems to be close to 100%, if not dead on 100%. Every single one that you're going to get with these two will have exactly what the parents gave. Do all of that and you're pretty much good to go. Your pal is at almost its peak in the game. It's extremely strong, has the best passives, IVs, everything else you need. And then you're wondering, why did I say almost at the peak? Well, you guessed it, 1.0 actually added one more mechanic on top of this, which is Awakening, kinda like turning Super Saiyan, but for your pal. Literally even has like the same aura. But for this we're going to need Radiant Gems and also Holy Tree Water, both of which we're going to find in the World Tree map, and specifically you're going to get those gems depending on the type of pal that you defeat. So if you want, for example, Dark Gems, you're going to want to defeat dark enemies. Once you have enough of those, you can craft the gem back at the ancient crafting bench. One is plenty enough to ascend, as you can only do it once. And once you do it, you get the achievement. You also get that really awesome yellow aura around your character and about 111 in extra stats, which I know pale in comparison with the max number that I have on my Xenoloord here, for example. But it's a nice extra on top that you can have, so, you know, it's pretty nice to have. Plus, you have the really cool aura too, which combines very well. Anyway, that about sums up how you can breed perfect pals in 2026 in PALWORLD 1.0. Let me know in the comments if you already got your perfect pal or are close to it. In the meantime, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.